Title 42 just expired the other day. It's been a big news story. Now, what is Title 42? Title 42 is created to address public health and social welfare and grants the government the ability to take emergency action in numerous ways, including to stop the introduction of communicable diseases. While the code has been set in place for decades, it was used widely in March 2020 by the administration of then President Donald Trump. Title 42 is basically utilized to say, hey, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we are going to enforce our border even more strictly, and we're going to do it under the cover of trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19. That's actually pretty feasible. How can the Democrats even argue with that? Because they were more strict on the policies they wanted to introduce when it came to COVID. Why wouldn't you enforce it there? Well, there's gain to be had for the Democratic Party with these people coming across the border. So let's talk the numbers of immigration and the actual reality of the situation down at the southern border. You often hear representatives like AOC, Ilhan Omar, the whole squad talking about, oh, these people are just seeking asylum. There's a famous video with AOC going head to head with, I believe, one of the Border Patrol people in Congress about how they are just asylum seekers. So not only do I have the Border Patrol numbers here on the actual Border Patrol website, but I also have a legal website explaining what asylum is and who qualifies for it. In 2020, the year of COVID, there were a total of 458,000 border encounters for the whole year. 458,000. This is just the southern border, by the way. In 2021, it tripled to 1.734 million. That's Joe Biden's first year in office. In 2022, that number, that 1.734 million, doubled to 2.378 million, averaging probably around 200,000 a month. That's insane. You often hear these leftists talking about these are just families. These are minors. These aren't families and minors. In fact, 70% are single adults. So the majority of them are working or military-age men with no kids, not even a fucking girlfriend. Single adults. That is the vast majority of the people trying to come across the border. Now, are they seeking asylum? Basic grounds for asylum. This is off a legal website. I'll provide the link in the description for the video. Being afraid to return to your home country is not enough by itself. To establish eligibility for asylum or refugee status under U.S. law, you must prove that you meet the definition of a refugee. This means that showing that you are either the victim of past persecution or you have a well-founded fear of future persecution. In this case of past persecution, you must prove that you are persecuted in your home country or last country of residence. The persecution must have been based on at least one of 5 grounds: either your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Proving this connection between the persecution and one of these 5 grounds is one of the most difficult parts of successfully applying for asylee or refugee status, especially because you must show that one of the 5 grounds was or will be a central reason for your persecution. What is persecution? U.S. immigration law does not specifically list types of persecution, except in one section of the refugee definition, saying that it includes people who have undergone or fear a coercive population control program, like the one with China. Few of the many people who apply for asylum fit into that category. The threat against you needs to also be nationwide. You won't be thought to have a well-founded fear of persecution if you could avoid the problem simply by moving to another part of the country. So if you're in the U.S. and you didn't like something that California was doing, you can't go seek asylum in Canada because you could just go to another state. That doesn't qualify. It has to be something that the entire country is doing. Does persecution need to come from the government? No. The persecution does not only need to come from your country's government or other authorities such as the police or security forces. Refugee law recognizes persecution by groups that the government is unable to control, such as guerrillas, warring tribes or clans, paramilitary group, or organized vigilantes. Again, however, persecution must have some political or social basis. A member of a criminal network who comes after you just because you haven't paid him off is not persecuting you according to refugee law. So therefore, the cartel does not even qualify. And the reason that you can't use the cartel as an example is because the cartel is actually helping the majority of these people cross the border. Also, the fact that you're suffering economically is not by itself considered a reason for granting refugee or asylee status, nor is it enough for someone has a grudge against you or has committed crimes against you for random or personal reasons. So just because you have yourself a situation where maybe the mob could be after you or the cartel in Mexico could be after you or whatever, or maybe the Mexican or whatever South American country they're coming from, their economy is doing absolutely terrible, does not qualify you to seek asylum. There's also a process to seek asylum. You have to go to the nearest port of entry. And most of the people now that are coming across aren't coming from Mexico, they're coming from countries south of Mexico. If you're seeking asylum to get out of your country, why wouldn't you go to the next country over? I feel like if you have, 2 or 3 countries before your country in the United States, and you could move to either one of them and avoid the problem, why wouldn't you? Why do you come here? The reason is because of the opportunities the United States offers. The American dream is still here, but that does not give you the right to come here illegally. There is a process. It also completely blows the democratic narrative out of the water that these people are persecuted, seeking asylum, and they should be allowed in here. So, really, the one thing that the Democrats were using to state that they had some kind of legal basis to be flooding across the border has just been completely debunked because it's not true. They're not seeking asylum. The majority of them are working age males that are single and coming over here for the purpose of working, which is fine. No one is saying that these people don't work hard. They do, but there's still a process. And there's also economic fallout, no matter how much people want to ignore it. First of all, a lot of the money they're making is sent back to their home country. It's not even staying in the United States. So that money that they're making isn't even being spent here. Second of all, if you have people who are coming here illegally that are being hired by companies, which companies do, even though they're not allowed to, then they're willing to work for less, or they don't really have a lot of negotiating power. So you have a form of slave labor almost coming in, and that is lowering wages of other American workers. Someone who else could use that job and would actually normally be paid higher is not going to get that position because the business can go and just have cheaper labor. So there's a lot of negative aspects to this, but it is frustrating when we are lied to. The main purpose of allowing all these people in is the way they vote. It's the Democratic Party that is changing the voting demographics, especially in these usually conservative and Republican states.